Well, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jessica Bennett in Meyer Library, and today we wanted to offer a virtual workshop um, focused on Zotero. This is a free bibliographic management tool, and the general idea behind using something like this is to help organize and keep track of the research that you found. It's one thing to be able to find the research you need, whether it's articles, books, whatever. But if you don't have a good system for organizing and retrieving it's just that much trickier. And this is a tool that my colleague Joshua Lambert uses daily. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself and then take you through how to use this wonderful tool.
Thank you, Jessica. And it is true that I use Zotero daily, and the pronunciation I probably get wrong. I sometimes say zo and sometimes zoo. So I will probably just say what I usually do, and if I'm wrong, someone can show me that later. And I'll probably still do the wrong thing. But I have been using Zotero for 14 years, I believe, which is as long as it's been available publicly. And as I give the presentation today, I would encourage you all to ask questions through the chat feature. And if I see them, I may try to answer them right then. And if not, Jessica will help me remember them and get them at the end of the presentation. But I definitely prefer interactive presentations, so ask questions. In the library, I am part of reference and instructional services. I also handle government documents and government data, and then do some things with digital scholarship. So some of those things may come out in the examples I use during the presentation, actually. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Most of the time, I will be doing this, and so you'll lose me, but you should be able to see what I'm doing here. All right, did that share successfully?
It did for me.
Okay, great. So let's start. What is Zotero? It's a citation management or reference management software. Software that helps you manage citations. It should allow you to import citation metadata, organize it, and create works, cited, or bibliography pages from those citations. And Zotero is much more, as we'll soon see, much more than that. And some of you may be familiar with other citation management software, such as EndNote or Mendeley or RefWorks. Actually, if those in attendance don't mind, if you've used a citation management software before, just type that into chat so I can see that. And if you haven't, go ahead and type that too, because that'll be good for me to know what I need to spend more time on. Each type of citation management software has its strengths and weaknesses. And so I'll try to point out Zotero's strengths and some of its weaknesses as we go along today. So it looks like a number of you have not used citation management software. So I think this could be very helpful for you. So first of all, what device can I use Zotero on? You can use Zotero on Windows and Mac OS and Linux. I use Zotero regularly on Windows at work and Linux at home. And Mac OS also works. You can synchronize your citations through third-party applications on iOS and Android, but it's not Zotero itself. So first of all, let's talk about how to install it then. Due to the variability of devices and operating systems, I'm not going to show how to install Zotero, but there are good instructions on the website. And a big download button right in the middle of the website. So you can follow the instructions there to do that. I will note that Zotero will download an application, but it really isn't showing its power until you also use the add-in for a browser. So that could be Chrome, or that could be Firefox. I'm not sure about Safari, if they have an add-in for that on Mac OS or not. So you'll just have to look around and see if that's the case. Another thing that I would suggest, though, is when you download it and have it downloaded successfully, also register for an account at zotero.org, because that will allow you to synchronize your citations online, and that can help you later on get to those from any browser. In addition to that, the way I use Zotero is I have everything not stored on my hard drive of the computer, but in OneDrive that synchronizes automatically up to Microsoft's servers. So that does work. Now let's actually look at Zotero and see what it looks like and how it works. So on the screen, you see Zotero, and there are 3 panes in Zotero. You have this one on the left called the Collections pane. It looks like a folder hierarchy from your file system, but it's really more like a playlist, because the same titles may be in, let's go to, they may be in one folder, and you could have the same title in another folder if I had something in this folder. So think of it more as a playlist. All of your items can be viewed in a list by going to My Library. And I have 3,530 items in My Library. In the second pane, it's called the title pane. It's because that's where it lists all the titles. And the third pane will show details for each of the things that you have in your title pane. So there's the title, author, abstract, book title. Up here is the item type. So it could be a book, an article, a video, and this is a list. When you're making citations for a paper, it's important that you know, is this a book or is this an article? Because you have to format the citation differently. So this software also has to know that. And we'll cover this in a little more detail later. But one of the primary reasons reference management software exists is to manage references, of course. In order to do that, you have to create some references. And this is where the software makes things easier in whatever software you're using. But I think Zotero especially makes this easy. A reasonable assumption these days is that you will get your citations from an online source on the web, and Zotero works best when this is the case. So let's go to a browser. And because I'm a librarian, I'm going to go to the library's website and scroll down to our Discover at MSU search. And I'm going to say no thank you to chatting with my colleague. And I will type in a search query. And after I do this, then we can see how to get the information into Zotero. I'm going to type in data management plan, which is something I deal with related to digital scholarship here in the library. If you do a in-depth research and intend to publish that, then you may very well need to create a data management plan. And I hope that I will get some results. Here we go. All right, so if you're not familiar with Firefox, you can look at the top bar and see some icons. The one that, there are a couple that probably aren't familiar, but this is the one that's important. This is an icon because I have an add-in installed in Firefox. I can use this icon, and this is Zotero's icon. It's a folder icon, and if I click it, showed up on another screen. Here we go. You can see a list, and what is that list? It's actually the list of items on the browser page here. So I can select a couple of those. Let's select this one and this one. Let's find one that's full text, one that's not. And let's scroll down and see if I can find a book. Here's an ebook. Okay. So data management for libraries. Okay, I have 3 of those checked. I'll hit OK. And when I do this, it will pop up a box here, and it says it's saving to my library, which is in Zotero. Actually, I don't want it to save to that library. I meant to save it to temporary, but I'll have to do that after the fact. Takes a little while sometimes. So it's saving 1, 2. Okay, and one of them, it got an error. And sometimes that happens. But let's go to my library and see where that went. I'm actually going to repeat the process into my temporary folder, which is empty. That way it'll be more obvious what's added and what's not. All right, let's pick this one and that one. Okay, repeat that. So you see this pop up, but I'm going to come over here, and as it imports these, it should populate this list right here. Okay, it looks like 1, 2, it may give another error. All right, there we go. It did not give an error that time. So we have 3 things in our title list now. And this one, it says a journal article, which was correct. It categorized it as a book. So where does this information come from? The add-in harvests it from the metadata on this web page. So as long as the information on this web page is correct, then the information here should be correct. I'll scroll down slowly. Long abstract. List the journal, volume, issue. Depending on what the website is, it may or may not pull certain bits of information. And if you think it's important, but it doesn't pull it, you may have to manually add or change some things. Date in particular is an odd field, because if your citation format, say APA, in your paper requires the date in a certain format, you may have to change this here. But the field is pretty intelligent, and it will often do it by itself. All right, so that's how to get items from our Discover at MSU search into Zotero. Let's look at one of those items in a little more detail here. Let's go with this top one. Notice over on the 3rd pane, you have an info, a notes, a tags, and a related tab. Each of them has different information. Let's just say, for the sake, I want to change this. All I have to do is click in here and change the format, and it has now done that. Another thing to notice is that there's a little cursor icon over here to the left. When it brought the information into Zotero, it actually automatically copied the PDF of this article. I'm going to double click it, and it opened up the article. So that article now is not pulling from the database that I searched at the, but it is on your hard drive or in whatever cloud storage it automatically saves. So whether it disappears from our library's website or not, you have it in Zotero. And not only that, let me get back into that. Once you have it here, if you use Adobe Acrobat, you can annotate and highlight. Let me put a comment here. Post that. And if I save it, it will tell me, do I want to save it here? And you'll see a weird named folder highlighted. Just accept that. What it's doing is it's saving it into the Zotero storage hierarchy. And just save again. Yes, I want to replace it. And now that annotated file will actually be saved here in Zotero forever until you delete it or accidentally lose it. And it's extremely reliable in my experience. So I haven't lost anything from Zotero for probably 11 years. All right, so over here in the third pane, you'll also see there are notes. If I want to, rather than taking notes inside the PDF, I can do so here. Okay, I think the third paragraph's bogus in that article. No good. So I'm going to make a note of that. And then I can click back here into the item. I see there's one note, and the note is in fact listed right next to the PDF. You can also use tags to tag things, and when they're pulled from library databases and some others, you'll automatically see the tags. It will automatically import some tags, and those are categorized and listed over here in the first pane. I don't use tags very much. They're a little too free form for my liking, but you may find a good use for them. So those are some of the things that we can do in Zotero. Do you have any questions yet? If you do, type it in the chat, and then I will move on. If not, another thing to note about items is we can see that there's something attached. Not only can we attach something, but we can also link to something. We can link to a web page, or we can link to a file in our file system. If we don't want to, if we've already annotated or have a file somewhere in our file system, and we don't want to actually duplicate it and put it in Zotero, then you can attach a link to a file. So I can do that. But most of the time, I would highly suggest just copying it into the Zotero database, because if that file ever moves, or if the location in your file system of the Zotero database moves, then you're going to lose access to that, just like a disappearing website would be. So generally, I suggest just copying it and letting it be in your database. It doesn't take up that much space most of the time. So let's just say, and I understand that most people don't get their data from the library's webpage. So let's see how to get it from somewhere else. I'll go to nature.com, and let's scroll down to their research articles section. Here we go, research articles. People systematically overlook subtractive changes. Hey, why not? Okay, so let's see. Does Zotero do anything here? Notice the icon changed here, And it does say save to Zotero Nature Publishing Group. So it recognizes this as an article. I'm going to click on that. It has this information. It looks like it probably will pull the full text. There we go. And a snapshot. Now the snapshot feature is also quite interesting, but good for us. So let's go to Zotero. And here's the new article. It has the data here. Click on this to expand. Make sure the full text came through okay. Yep, there's the article. And snapshot, let me double click that. What does that do? It brings up, it goes to the same web page. Is that what it does? Well, not exactly. Notice right here, this information, this web page is now coming from your file system. It took a snapshot of the web page where the article was, and you have it right here. So this is the article as well. Depending on your workflow, you may prefer the PDFs. I do, because I can annotate them and highlight them using Adobe Acrobat and then save them back into Zotero. But it may be that you prefer to read the snapshot here, especially if you want to increase font size or do some other manipulations. The snapshot may be better for you. I find Zotero to be very useful if I hear of an article that I want to read, but I don't have time to read it. I just save it to Zotero and then I come back and read it later. Or that's the hope that I will come back and do so. I don't always. Okay, and now, so a lot of journal article web pages, you can, or Zotero will pull the information like that. But if a specific journal doesn't, if Zotero doesn't recognize the metadata from a specific journal, then I always go to scholar.google.com. And a lot of times I go there first anyway. Let's type in, let's do cricket powder sourdough. Ooh, I'm a hobbyist fermenter at home, so I like making sourdough and kombucha and other things. So can you make sourdough from cricket powder? That's the question. Odd question, I know, but it has crossed my mind. So there are a number of articles. In fact, people have published on such things. People will publish on the craziest things. Let's say I want to put this article into Zotero. So I have a folder again, which means I can highlight more than one item. So let's take this third one and hit OK. Okay, looks like it's importing it. It's going to import the full text. I don't have to sit and wait for it. I can go here, but I wanted you to see that it's working. All right, let's take a look. Yep, here's the full text, and there's a snapshot. Looks like it doesn't have particularly good metadata, but it's not too bad here. I think you would have most of what you need. Ironically, and I chose this one on purpose, the publisher, MDPI, of this article is not a well looked upon publisher. In fact, it is sometimes considered to be a predatory publisher. I'm not saying that it is, but sometimes it is considered as such. So that doesn't mean Zotero won't import the metadata anyway. I have the information. I have full text here in two versions, HTML and in PDF. Let's go back to Google Scholar and let's take more than one item this time. Let's get the first one. And let's just take this one. Okay, one of them we cannot get the full text to, not with Zotero right here. And the other one, it looks like we probably will. All right, let's go back here. Yep, looks like we have them. All right, so that's one way to import things through Google Scholar. And because of this folder mechanism, I really find going to Google Scholar and using their search to be helpful with Zotero. And just to try something different, let's go to a local news source and see if we can import things from there. So color10.com is a local TV station. All right. Let me choose this article. Hopefully it won't automatically start playing video. Okay, and let's try to save this to Zotero. The icon did change, and Zotero does recognize embedded metadata. So I clicked on that, and it created the title over here. And notice that it actually categorizes this as a blog post. Why would it do that? Well, believe it or not, Color10's webpage is all built around RSS feeds. And that stands for really simple syndication. It's probably a 20 or 25-year-old technology. And usually RSS feeds are considered to be blogs. And so that's why Zotero thought it was a blog. If I don't think it is, and I want to call it something else, then I can click on the item type. What else could it be? Let's call it a magazine, a newspaper article. Let's just say we're going to call it that. It changed the fields of metadata available here. And so in order for the citations to be correct in your papers, then it has to show this correctly. So if you need to add anything, you can. All right, so I'm concentrating a lot on how to get information into Zotero, but really getting it out of Zotero is pretty straightforward. And getting it in, there are lots of ways to do that. So I'm going to show you just a couple more. If I go just to the library's webpage, and let's say I want to save that, I can click on this item, and this icon means it's just a generic web page. So it saved the web page information as a web page. Not a whole lot of details, but here it is. And in fact, it saved a snapshot. So I can see what the library's web page looked like when I visited. Now, what do you do if you need to create an item from scratch? Let's say it's not on the web anywhere, maybe because you did an interview with somebody and you want to add that as a citation in your paper. Then there's a little green circle with a cross, not a cross, a plus sign in it. And then you can click on that, and it has the long list of item types, and I'll choose interview. Type in the information. And interview with, type in who it's with. And there are two ways to have an author. You can have it one name for the whole author, or you can have it as two. I'm going to expand or maximize my window so we can see this a little better here. Okay, so here's one. If I want it in two different fields, then I can click on this and it asks for last and then first. And so there we have Lambert Joshua here. And if I wanted it a single, say it's a company, and I just type it in as one word. and you can adjust that as needed. Fill out the rest of the fields or any of them you think will be relevant to your citation, and then you can be done. There is one other way that I haven't found useful too often, but I did recently, and it was extremely handy. So it's like a magic wand icon here. You can click on that, and I can just paste in a list of ISBNs or digital object identifiers or a few other types of information. And let me grab a DOI and paste that in. I can paste it in here. And Zotero will try to go out and just harvest the information from somewhere. And in fact, it will try to get the PDF to download it too, if possible. Looks like it wasn't possible in this case, but we do have all of the metadata right here. So all I did was paste in a digital object identifier. Let me get a list of digital object identifiers. So I have a list that off screen I copied, going to paste them here. You can see this is my list, and I'm just going to click search, and it will add all of those into the list in Zotero. Okay, it works for a while. All right, and you can see that it actually downloaded the full text of some of them. So that can be a very handy feature. It's pretty limited cases when it is, but it can be. And another thing, if you're migrating from another system, such as EndNote or RefWorks, you can export the metadata from there and then import it into Zotero. If you go to File, Import, you can import whatever file you would like. So just go through the process, then you would find a file and import it. I don't have a file ready to do that, so I'll just skip that for now. All right, if you have any questions about getting information into Zotero, let me know.
Joshua?
Yes.
This is Jessica, obviously. I'm not seeing any questions as of yet. Please do pop those in if you have them. I'm wondering, when you are searching using the library resources, Discover, do you ever use the export tool from within like an individual article?
Let me pull one up so we can all see that. Go to the search we had before. All right. This first item will probably be fine. You said once we're in the title level page?
Yes.
Okay, I'll click on that. And right here is export. I don't use that if I want to get the information into Zotero, no. Because Zotero can just scrape it a lot easier by hitting this icon than me having to go through this save process.
Okay, that's excellent to know, since this does, pop up on individual item level records.
Right, right. EBSCO provides the great service of allowing you to get individual citations from articles as you work with this, but it's not as dynamic as Zotero, as you'll see shortly when I actually create a report based on what we've imported here. Another thing to note about EBSCO that could be helpful is that you can click share and email a link to download exported results. And supposedly this will be a very large file with information maybe all the results in your list, which this one's a little too big, 300,000 or more. But if it were smaller, you could export all of those and import them into Zotero that way. So there may be cases when that will be helpful. Let me get my panes back in order here. All right. So how do you get the information out? How do we get it out? So let's see that. In order to show you, I'm going to minimize the browser. Going to start Word. Probably have to bring it over onto the screen so you all can see. Okay, so there is a plugin that you can use with Microsoft Word. And this isn't the only way. Let me make this small enough so we can get it on the screen. Okay, the simplest way to get citations out of Zotero is just to highlight a few. So I'm going to highlight a few titles. I'm going to right click and create bibliography from items. I choose what style. Let's choose APA 7th edition. I want bibliography style, and I'm just going to copy it to the clipboard. That means I have to paste it somewhere, and that is right here in this document. Okay, and now we have a well-formatted list of citations. You may find problems in this list, and that's probably because the metadata is bad or isn't quite like you want it. And so you may have to go back into a specific title, change an author spelling or the title, something like that. So you may have to do that, but I would always review the citations it gives, but you can quickly make this list. But this isn't a dynamic list. It's just copied and pasted, and there's no link back to Zotero. Let's say I'm typing away on my research paper and I want to add a citation from Zotero. There's another way to do that, and I can click on the Zotero. This is if you have the plugin in Word already. Click on the Zotero add-in menu, click add or edit a citation, and let's see. There we go. Asks me what kind of citation. I'm going to hit OK. All right. Let's see. Oh, good. Keeps showing up on my other screen. I can type in here. Data management, and it brings up a list of all the items from Zotero that are about data management. Let's pick the one that I've just quoted or alluded to in my paper, and I'm going to hit enter, and it then creates a correctly formatted in-text citation. And let's do that again. Okay, let's add another one. Okay, but why would you do that with in-text citations? Well, here's the reason. Then I add or edit a bibliography and hit OK. And it will create at the bottom of your document, because this document, yeah, my document's not long enough for you to be able to see. I guess I would, let's redo that. Say there's a page break and I'm on the page where I'm supposed to have this. There we go. It will automatically add the citations in the end. But the really good thing is that if you need to change something in here because it's not right, let's say the title or one of the authors isn't correctly spelled in your metadata, you go back here, you find the metadata, you change the author, and once you change it, you come back into Word, refresh, and it will automatically change the spelling here. So you don't want to start changing spellings within this text. You do it in Zotero, and then it will automatically update. All right, so the power really comes when you have a lot of citations in a paper. And if you're working on a graduate thesis, that's exactly what you're going to have. So those are the main things that Zotero can do for you. There is a similar plugin for Google Docs as there is in Word. So if you use Google Docs, look into that, and you can do the same thing. Or if all else fails, just do a copy to clipboard at the end of your paper and paste it all into your document. All right. Are there any questions? All right, doesn't look like there are any other questions. Well, that is all that I have today. So,
Joshua, I just
yes.
thought of something else that might be worthwhile to know or think about. You've mentioned that Zotero, I honestly don't know how to pronounce it either, will automatically add in PDF full text if it can find it. What do you do when it doesn't pull in PDF full text or there isn't full text available? What is your process?
Very good question. Let me bring the browser back up. Let me go back to the same search. I just need to get a PDF file onto my desktop, and then I can show you. Because that is a case, or I can just show you anyway. There's this clip icon. Click on that and attach stored copy of file. And at that point, you would have to have found a PDF file somewhere. So that's up to you to find it if Zotero can't get it right away. So let's say you found a file, you can just drag it to your desktop or put it wherever you want in your file system and use this feature. And let's just choose the file and attach it. And there it is. It renamed it automatically based on the metadata that was available here. So that's how you would add the file. And you can do this with any type of file. It doesn't have to be a PDF. It could be a doc file, a Word file, an Excel file. It doesn't have to be something Zotero can read. It just stores it and then you open it later. In fact, it could be a Python program. For some reason you want to save here. Go ahead and save it, and you can come back and open it later.
Thank you, Joshua. I thought that might be helpful since, the full text isn't always just right there.
Right. Zotero does provide a few features that will allow you to clean up your database. When you get a lot of items like I have, you inevitably get duplicates. And I have duplicates because I've been preparing for this presentation and automatically imported a bunch of files today. And so you can one by one merge them, and then it will no longer be duplicated within your database. You can also find unfiled files or items. This shows everything when you click on My Library, everything that you have. And most of the time you want to put those in some kind of collection here in these folders. If they're not in a folder, then that's what an unfiled item is. So probably you just forgot to put them in the right spot, and you can drag and drop them into another place. Let's say the temp. Now it goes out of that list and we can find it here. I've used Zotero for 14 years now, and I use it for many things that don't have to do with research papers. And I found it to be very effective as part of my general workflow when doing research or helping people in the library, actually.
This has been so wonderful, and I'm so happy that now, even for myself, I know how to use this tool more effectively. As we wrap up, are there any final questions or thoughts for Joshua?